Well, hi again. Let's continue from where we have left. I had introduced you the optimization problem, and uh, there's a small part where basically you can see how it can be defined and how it can be solved in the lecture slides. I'm not going into detail of it. Well, previously, as I said before, there was a part where we show how the optimization problem of a consumer can be mathematically be solved, which is very similar to the solutions you see in the math part. Um, that solution is called indifference curve analysis, and it is existing in the appendix part of your book, consumer chapter of your book, consumer theory chapter of your book. And you can see it also on the internet. It's a very famous analysis, indifference curve analysis. However, as I said, we won't cover it in this course because people say it is too difficult for engineering students. I mean, who take this course as an elective course. So I decided to take it out. However, we still try to discover basic, let's say, properties, basic characteristics of the consumption behavior of a consumer, of different consumers, of basically common law, which should be true for all consumers, let me say, who solve this optimization problem. And defining those common laws that of consumers to solve this optimization problem can be done without solving this problem providing exact solution of this problem mathematically. And that's why we will go that way. I mean, we won't solve this optimization problem for the consumers. Still, we will be able to define common laws, basically, for consumers who solve this problem. But by the way, the consumers, of course, don't solve this problem by using math. I mean, which would mean every consumer, every buyer, every person basically in the world should do mathematical calculations to decide which good they want to buy or sell, buy or not buy. I not sell, of course. Uh, However, uh, we just try to assume we just try to model mathematically when we are trying to solve the optimization problem mathematically the instinctive process that is going people's mind in a mathematical way, uh, and we try to model it in a way that the basic properties of the model, which is modeling basically the decision making process of every buyer in the world, which means basically everyone who consumes things in the world, uh, so that our model would be true, the basic characteristics of our model would be true for everyone. Just like, I mean, the great maximization model, we might say, the basic characteristics of the great maximization problem, not exact points, basically, not exact location of these curves, basically, but the basic characteristics of the model, the shapes or the basic solution, might be true. We might claim, of course, still not a professional claim, but if maybe it is developed, it is checked by psychologists, it might be possible to claim this great maximization problem's basic characteristics is true for every student. Just like that, I mean, it can be claimed that the mathematical analysis of the consumer is the basic characteristic of that mathematical analysis might be true for everyone. So we are not doing that detailed mathematical analysis, but instead we are trying to find some basic rules that are true for every consumer. Okay, so let's continue. We are passing these parts. You can read. It's interesting. Um, so before going further, after we will cover theory of consumer today. Next week we will cover theory of producer, which is also sometimes called in literature as theory of the firm. And then we will bring two theories together, and we will basically create the model of perfect competition. And then in the last lecture we will see how the framework we have built in these 3 weeks will work if there are imperfections, basically. This week we will basically look at the imperfections from the demand side. Next week we will look to imperfections that exist in the supply side. Although I will briefly mention also some imperfections on the demand side also in the last week, I mean. So the imperfections on the supply side we will see in the 4th week, I mean, if we take this week as the first week. So, this question could be a very interesting question. Although the answer is very basic in economics, because we are trying to find a common answer which is true for everyone. So we might consume for our psychological needs, we might consume for our physical needs, we might consume because we might think that consumption might help the world, we might consume that because that consumption makes us happy. There can be many different reasons. We might consume just as instinct even, but because consumption buying things itself might making people happy. Although that is a case which is not covered with this with the basic answer of economics. But the most basic answer, this model gives, which doesn't cover the happiness that is taken just from buying process. But even there, I mean, maybe the product might be, we the product itself might be, we might buy rather a product that is also useful for us, or the product itself should give us maybe some happiness. But the basic answer is, of course, utility. I didn't know utility when I first get the utility concept. It is something between benefit and happiness. It kind of takes both in together. I mean, something that is beneficial for me. I mean, this glass or a medicine I have doesn't make me directly happy. Indirectly, it might be happy because I'm more healthy. But it's beneficial for me. But some other things, even certain things that are harming my health, for example, drinking a lot of coffee, might make me psychologically happy, even though non-psychologically it might be harming me. I mean, my body, it might be harming my body. So, as a consumer, it is assumed each person is trying to get as much utility, this happiness or benefit, possible from the goods he or she buys and consumes. Just a brief history, let me say brief history of this utility concept. It was developed in the 18th century by a guy called Bentham. He kind of even defines the state and economic system, an ideal economic system, which at that time was organized by different social layers and obligations of different social classes to each other, which are more directly defined. Today, the classes might also exist, but those definitions are not necessarily that direct. He claimed actually the whole system should serve to the utility of the people. But what is utility? How it is defined? How we can define happiness? Bentham gets actually has done great work in kind of aiming to define that happens, the utility concept. Like he defined intensity of the utility, duration of utility. He was aiming to make utility some measurable concept. At 18th century, that's the time when you could not measure the brain, or I mean, you don't even have calculators at the time. I mean, but he tried to create a measurable concept. Of course, but even though theoretically he has worked, I mean, practically still, even his work, even though he has done a long work, he worked very hard. The concept remained not measurable, and because it is not measurable, it was usually not used by the economists and social scientists who came right after him. Rather, production level productivity, what producers are doing is taken as the center of the economics study. Marginalists, on the other hand, claimed utility concept can still be used because even though we might not necessarily measure the utility level, the benefit a person gets from his total consumption, everything he buys, or every total consumption of even a particular good, all water I drink, is still measurable according to them, to understand, to compare at least the utility an individual gets from the last unit of a product or of a good he or she buys. So if this is the last water I buy today or this week or this month or this year, I can compare the utility I got from the last water bottle I buy to the last coffee I buy. How I do that, I'm going to talk on that in a minute. And they say this utility concept would be a useful concept to develop economics, especially microeconomics framework, because in the end, all consumers are utility maximizers. So all consumers want to get as much utility benefit from everything they buy as possible, just like Bentham has taught. So in a way, in the consumer's mind, the main problem becomes, according to the microeconomics framework, utility maximization problem, where they have the money, they distribute the money to buy different goods, and at the end of the day, all the goods they buy with that money should give them as high utility as possible. How I make the calculation in my mind to find out utility of each product, this bottle of coffee and this bottle of water, this is something that is not discussed in at least the most basic macroeconomics framework. So we are, it is a discussion by itself, and there is a special economic branch that is doing it. But we just start from the point where every individual, every buyer has already decided, even if he or she has done instinctively, what he likes and what he doesn't like. How much he likes the one bottle of coffee, how much he likes the second bottle of coffee, how much he is third bottle of coffee. He has made that decision before buying anything, even. So those decisions, those preferences are formed before the buyer starts to buy things. So this is our starting point, and we will see how that kind of a consumer will behave under microeconomics framework according to consumer theory in the next part. We will start to look.